I'm sure there have been people that have talked shit about you in the online space, calling you a scammer, saying like shit like that. Like,
I mean,
has there ever been a time where someone said something in that space regarding your work?
Like, I don't see a lot of it, but I'm sure it happens, of course. Like, I would think I'd be lying if I said no one's ever said I'm a piece of shit or scammer or whatever. First thing is just understanding the space we're in. For whatever reason, if you're in internet marketing, you sell a course, you do coaching, you do consulting, that is viewed in society as like it's a scammy. Like if I build my tech company, no one's gonna say it's a scam.
Yeah.
Because they just like, oh, you're a tech CEO? Fuck. Like it's just looked at different. And then number two is then just understanding that's a story they tell themselves, right? It took me a long time to understand this, but whenever you get triggered by someone, there's something in them that you see that bothers you. That's 100% what it is. And I used to hate that because if I saw someone was like, no, I don't. I hate him because he's a piece of shit. Like, fuck that guy.
Yeah.
Life is a mirror. It's not a window. When you see people, if something about them bothers you, the reason it bothers you is there's something in them that is truthful that triggers you, right? You're like, maybe the guy is kind of selfish, and then you're like, oh, fuck that guy. He's selfish. You're like, maybe you're kind of selfish. Maybe you've had those thoughts before.
Have you ever drank your own piss? Because urine therapy is like a fucking thing.
I've never done that. I've actually never been asked that question before, but no, dude, I definitely have not. I don't think it's something I want to try either. It's definitely just something I'm not interested in.
Yeah. No, like I've tried like all the biohacking shit.
Yeah.
Right? Like I do the red light, I do the ice baths, like the different fucking injections and shit like that.
Right.
But the urine therapy, like just drinking my own urine, and then there's people that are literally like rubbing the urine all over their body, claiming that it's amazing for their skin and shit. And I'm like, that's just a little
There's just
too
some
much.
things for me where like if I think I can get a little benefit, I'll do it. But then there just comes some things where it's not worth the trade-off to me. Like that to me is just not worth the trade-off at all. I'll die sooner.
What's the craziest shit that you've done regarding like health, biohacking, something to try to enhance your performance?
I don't think it's anything crazy. I think it's a lot of the basics. So like every day I have a little bit of a cocktail of pills. So I've tried like rapamycin. So that's a little bit more progressive. I take NAD+. I take, I can't remember the name of it right now, but it's like kind of like a form of BPC 157, but that's not really that crazy. A lot of different peptides, little small amounts of HGH, low dose TRT. Like I'll try everything and then I kind of see how I feel. Also, you can get blood work, but I don't think it's crazy. I think most of that stuff, it's more progressive and it's like, hey, you can get a little boost here. You can get a little boost there. TRT's probably been the most beneficial, and it's hard to come off because after you feel how good you feel on it, it's really hard to come off after.
Yeah.
And you want to make sure, like I do it in a safe, like I think I do it as safe as you can, right? Like you shouldn't be taking a ton. Like I think if your test is over 1,500, it's just, you're going to get a lot of negative benefits, but I do feel different, and I sleep better. I work harder. I have a better mood. I can go harder in the gym, obviously. I recover faster. That's been probably the closest thing to a miracle drug that I've seen. Some of the other stuff probably works as well, but you don't feel it that way. Like when I take rapamycin or something, I don't really feel it. Or if I take NAD+, I don't feel it. But yeah, man, I mean, I got a little cocktail every morning and I do feel better. I definitely feel better. And something I've noticed too is that a lot of times with supplements, a lot of them are bullshit. They don't do that much. But what I notice is when I take the supplements, because I'm spending the money, it actually helps me be healthier overall because I don't want to feel like I'm wasting the supplements, right? Like I don't want to take the supplements and then go eat McDonald's. It makes me actually want to eat healthier and go to the gym more. So for me, I think I get a lot more benefit because it actually helps me stay on a more healthy lifestyle by taking the supplements, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course.
So.
I mean, there's very few people that come to mind that have achieved your level of success in business that also make health a top priority.
Yeah, I just like feeling good. I like feeling good. I like looking good. It just makes me feel better. Like going to the gym is more mental for me than physical. I feel I'd be in prison if I didn't go to the gym because it's just my outlet for stress. I know a lot of people don't do it, but it's also, to me, it's just a level of self-discipline. I think I got bullied as a kid a lot. Well, I did get bullied as a kid a lot. And I've even noticed as an adult, I don't say stuff out loud, but I'm very hypercritical of people because I think people are hypercritical of me. So I'll see someone I'm like, oh, he's kind of chubby, like in my head, right? Or I'm like, he's not in shape. And it's not that I'm trying to be a dick. It's just I feel that I'm very hypercritical that way. And that's how I kind of view people. So to me, I think people, their perception is reality. Some people will look at you and they make a judgment right away. And I think how you look is one of those statements. And so not only do I feel better, but I think it helps me make more money. It helps me obviously in dating. There's really a lot of benefits, and you live longer and you feel better. So to me, it's like, what's the point in making all this money and doing all these things if you feel like shit and you can't perform?
Yeah. I've been called a fat shamer a couple different times. I've been called a fat shamer because I've said on many different occasions, I'm much more likely to do business with someone if I see that they're fit, they're jacked, they take care of their body.
Right.
Because for me, that means that they actually have discipline. It means that they actually have self-respect. It means that I can much more likely count on them to show up and be reliable because I know that they're showing up for themselves.
No, I agree. I 100% agree. I think it just shows a massive amount of self-discipline. I think fitness is probably the most constant form of self-discipline you have to show because you eat on a daily basis. So if someone's in really good shape, they're showing consistently that on a daily basis they can make those decisions, not just a one-off or a one-time type of deal. I would agree with you. Now that doesn't mean I'm Andy Elliott, taking people's shirts off and, saying if you don't have a six-pack, you can't work for me.
Yeah.
But I would prefer that. And I do think you get better performance, right? Like there's people on my team who they don't take care of themselves physically as much. And they definitely don't perform as well as they could. Even if they're a great performer, you'll perform better because you feel better, right? So part of the battle is just, you can push yourself through feeling like shit. But if you feel good consistently, you're going to perform better. It just makes sense, right? Because you're not having to push so hard mentally to kind of get through that block.
How do you lead those people who might be neglecting their health? Is there any little nudges that you give them to encourage them to get on track and take care of their shit, or what?
I might make suggestions, but I think ultimately to get people to follow you, it's just lead by example. And then you show people love. And then over time, they kind of start, thinking, what does this guy have that I don't? A lot of the people I respect the most, they don't tell me what to do. I just watch them. And I also noticed that a lot of them are very convicted. So you would laugh at, if I told you all the guys I respected, it's very different. So the spectrum goes from way over here, where people might say that guy's way out there.
Who are some of those people?
Like Yados is one of them. Yados, he's just very open about what he's done in his lifestyle, and I respect it. And he just is very transparent. Justin Waller's one of them. Again, he's considered probably more out there, but he just thinks the way he's living his life is correct. Like, I believe that when I hear him talk. Some people, they say stuff and you don't really believe it. I think maybe part of why I respect them is I'm not always sure how I should live my life, right? Like, I'm not 100, like, there's things in my life right now I'm not 100% sure which path I should go down for the long haul. And so I think I respect people who have that surety. Coming to the other side of the spectrum, it's going to be like Alex Hormozy, right? That's one of my boys. He's a very, more conservative guy. Most people would, agree with that. But the common thread among them is they're very sure of how they're living their life, right? And I think that's what intrigues me, right? Especially
that level of conviction.
Well, yeah, and especially when they're doing stuff other people don't do. So, like, Yados has been very transparent about, he was in a relationship and dating a bunch of other girls. Justin does similar stuff. Alex is on the other side of the spectrum. And I think I respect people when they're doing something against the status quo, but they're, in my opinion, they're doing it in a way where they're just being themselves. They're like, I'm not trying to, do something to get attention or have people think I'm cool. I'm just doing it because. And I'm assuming the reason I respect it is because certain things in my life, I'm not quite sure which direction I want to go. And so when they do it, it makes me think like, are they onto something that I'm missing? Am I missing something? It just makes me question myself and think deeper. And those are the relationships I enjoy the most. Is it helps me, kind of go down those philosophical routes of, you know, how to live life and what's the best way to do things. I find it, you know, very interesting.
I think authenticity is the most magnetic energy, right?
Yeah.
Because when you're living and walking in your truth, you're going to trigger people. You're going to upset people. And you're also going to attract people that resonate with that vibration of like, yo, I really fuck with that person. I might not even agree with them, but I just respect the fact that they're willing to speak their truth unapologetically.
Yeah, and it takes a lot of times it takes nuts. It's not easy, you know, when you do something and then you get negative feedback, right? Because I think on average, if someone gets negative feedback, they start going, oh, maybe I shouldn't do that then, right? You start questioning yourself. I think it's very freeing if you can walk in a direction and be unapologetic and not worry what other people say. I think that's one of the cheat codes to life. And that's where I think you get internal peace too.
Do you feel like you're stepping into that next level of authenticity yourself, using your platform to kind of share more of your truths?
I'm trying to. Something that's been very difficult for me is just certain things on how to live my life. And because of how not because of how I was raised, but we all get certain ideas about how the world should be based on who we interacted with, what happened to us as kids, stuff like that. And as I've gotten older, I think I've felt a lot of guilt and shame around certain ideas I've had, right? Because someone might say, oh, you shouldn't think that or you shouldn't feel that way. And I would go down these rabbit holes trying to change how I felt. And I think I've gotten to a place now where I don't know if certain ideas I have are the right ideas, but I'm at peace that I don't know. Which for a long time I wasn't. It really would tear me up that, man, I don't know what to do. And I would just seek advice. And the more advice I seemed to seek, the more confused I got. So I don't pretend to have all life answers, but I think I've gotten to a place where I'm at peace with where I am, that maybe I don't know what to do, but I'm at peace with that. And I think I have the confidence I'll figure it out, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I'm assuming some of that stems back to growing up Mormon in Utah, right?
Yeah.
You have 6 siblings?
6, yeah. 4 sisters, 2 brothers. It's a lot.
And
Brady Bunch.
In the Mormon faith, it's monogamy or nothing, right?
Yeah. I mean, 100%. I mean, now some people would always make jokes, or, you know, they'll say, they'll talk about polygamy, but that was like a couple hundred years ago. Right, in the Mormon faith. And I could go down a whole rabbit hole of like why they did it and this and that, but you know, people start arguing, I don't really care. But yeah, it's pretty much monogamy. And I mean, most of the world says that too, though. You know, I mean, that is a standard in society for sure. And like, I don't have anything wrong with that or whatever, but you know, I think to give a little context of what I'm thinking about, most of my life, I've never really had any vices. I've never had issues with drugs, alcohol. I've never really even understood why people would get that. I don't enjoy too many things, and I'm open to that. But when I get time off, you know, I'm like, they're like, what do you want to do? I'm like, I'll watch a movie or we'll go to dinner. I don't really, you know, I don't want to go do a bunch of stuff, or I don't have a lot of activities I enjoy. It used to be football when I was younger. But kind of circling around, I've always enjoyed women, right? Like, and not in a bad way. I don't have like an issue or a problem, or I can't, you know, show self-control. That's always been something I've enjoyed. And so when you grow up in an environment or in society where, you know, it's like, hey, it's monogamy or nothing, which is fine. Like, I'm not even against it. I just think that's where I've had a lot of issues about what's the best way to live my life. Should I be single? Should I be monogamous? Is it more mature to if I don't feel this way, should I still do it? Like, because for example, going to the gym, I don't always want to go to the gym, but I know deep down I should. Like, that's kind of something I feel pretty confident about.
Right.
I don't feel so confident in that aspect of my life with women, at least currently. And so it can cause obviously issues, because if you're, you know, meeting women and they want certain things and you're not sure, that's a problem, right? Like, women are looking for confidence in a guy who knows where he's going. And that bothered me for a long time. And so I think I'm just more at peace where I'm at now, where maybe I don't have all the answers or no, but I got at peace with it, I guess you could say.
I definitely resonate with that. I mean, especially when you've achieved a certain level of success, you have followers, you have resources, you live in a place like Miami, like, so much of the attention is honestly coming inbound. And it's probably the same for
Right.
you. You probably have people sliding in your DMs, or when you're pulling up to different places, you have attention on you. And it is sometimes, at least for myself, it's like challenging to navigate, especially for me, because I'm in like the health and healing space. So I host, you know, different events and ceremonies where people are like processing really heavy emotions and they're unblocking certain things. And a lot of times those things are like sexual blockages.
Sure.
Right? Whether it's guilt or shame associated with that. So for me, it's like really being firm in my boundaries of being a facilitator and being a leader in that space and creating that safe space. And it's also like, I'm a fucking masculine dude who has desires as well. Mm-hmm. And it's also been a challenge that I've navigated, kind of finding that healthy balance. Right? And I feel like a lot of it comes down to just extremely clear communication. Like if you are seeing someone.
No, I mean, that it is 100% of the time, just be honest. Going to your point, sorry to cut you off, but going to your point, a few things. Something that used to bother me a lot is growing up, you know, my family's very religious, so they have certain ideas about the world. As I've gotten older, I get a little bit annoyed, not in a bad way, but there's just so much confusion and chaos. No one really agrees on anything.
Yeah.
And that's really bothering me because I'm the type of guy where if someone tells me what to do and I know it will work, I'll do it. Like I would lick this floor if I knew it'd make me $1 billion. Like I'd lick the whole thing.
Yeah.
Right. But when you don't know what to do, I think that's what gets frustrating because people are like, well, you should do this, you should do that. And, you know, when you're searching for truth, at least for me, that would bother me. Going back to that point, as a young man, I didn't really notice because I was so focused on making money that I didn't realize till I was older. I wasn't really dating. And then I started making money and I realized as a young man, you can't really date at a high level as a young man because you don't really have any value. Like, you know, you're not valuable. Women want resources, men usually want sex. And so as a young man, you haven't no value yet because you haven't gotten anything. And I worked pretty much my whole 20s. I dropped out of college. I didn't date till I was about 27. And then I had a very serious girlfriend. And then you get in your 30s and it feels like you just hit your pinnacle, right? 30s for, I think most men is your peak. 30s to 40s, you still look pretty good. You're not completely ugly yet. You're making good money if you've taken care of your shit. You're in good shape. And then it kind of feels like, you know, the girls in their 20s did enjoy it because they were beautiful and got asked to go on yachts. Right. And then in your 30s, it almost feels as if it's like, hey, it's time to grow up. And I'm not against that either, but I guess it kind of bothers me sometimes where I go, man, like I've worked so hard to get to this point, and now as soon as I get here, you know, you get told to grow up and you need to put your childish like things away. And I'm thinking I never did any childish things. I was a grown ass man when I was like 12 years old. Like since I was 12 years old, I honestly have just worked and worked and worked and worked. So there's nothing bad about what I'm saying. I just think I'm trying to search for truth and like how to live my life. And there's some of those things that do bother me, right? And then I start wondering, you know, should I do what I feel like doing, right? But then when you go back to things like discipline, like the gym, I don't always want to go to the gym. So then I go, well, maybe I shouldn't do that just because I want to. Maybe I should do the other. The hard part is there's no right answer, really. And I don't think you can get it from someone else. It has to come from within. And, you know, when you're navigating relationships, it affects the other person. So it's not as easy. I mean, you can obviously do whatever you want, but when it affects another person, that gets pulled into play. And so that has been a little bit difficult for me, I guess. You know, it's just been a little
I think ultimately it comes down to just really tapping into your intuition, which I think you probably have a really strong intuition.
Yeah.
And it's like being super conscious about who we're taking advice from. You know, I was talking about this yesterday. It's like the human health director of the US was Rachel Levine the last 4 years. She was born Richard Levine. She has 4 fucking chins. And we're listening to her to get health advice. We're listening to fucking Bill Gates and Fauci about the mask mandates and the 6 feet separation and these jabs that clearly don't fucking work. Like these people aren't embodying a healthy lifestyle. Why the fuck would I listen to them? Yeah. It's the same thing with relationships. It's like my parents have been together 47 years. So it's like I will listen to some things that they have to say because they've gone through all of the ups and downs. And it's not necessarily going to be super valuable if I take advice from someone who has been single in their 50s. Right? Because they've never actually been in that committed relationship. So I think we just have to be super conscious. Same way in business, you're not going to take advice from a broke person.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I want to absorb and be a sponge around you because you fucking have built shit. You have gone through all of these different obstacles and tests and you've overcome them. So it's like, I know I can learn from you.
Sure. I think it's also hard. I think in some things it's also hard if you don't know where you're going, right? So you mentioned your parents have been in a relationship for 47 years. That's amazing. Congrats to them. But, you know, sometimes I think, man, like, is that what I really want? Do I want to be in a relationship for 47 years?
Right.
Right. Because you don't know. The other thing when people talk about relationships, there really is no gold standard because you could be in a relationship for 47 years, but you actually don't really like each other.
Exactly.
Right? You stay at convenience. So that's, I think for me, when I've talked about that, that's been more the struggle for me. Cause I think the first thing is, as a man, if you don't know where you're going, you can't possibly get there. So I think that's been a thing for me first is, where do I actually want to get to? And then because society at least has an idea of what a relationship should look like, if you think of anything or you're talk about anything outside of that, it doesn't usually bode well, right? Like, it doesn't go so hot. But I just think for me, that's where a lot of my frustrations have come from, because, you know, you'll see people get married, but then 50% get divorced. And then, you know, it's like, okay, so should I even get married then? But if I do get married, how many of those people are actually happy who stay together? And there's just no way to know. And I think asking more people sometimes can create more confusion.
Yeah.
So again, like, just for me, that's been probably the most confusing thing in my life, because I feel at least there's not as much direction versus fitness and business. They seem a lot more straightforward for me.
Yeah. What are some of the core values that you're looking for? Because at least for me, one of the things that's been coming up more and more as I get older is being with someone, being with a partner who really supports my vision and who's like a cheerleader.
Yeah.
And you know, oftentimes there'll be like jealousy or resentment based on their own insecurities. Maybe you're not spending enough time with me or whatever. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, it's like, we're both building meaningful shit in the world.
Sure.
And I feel like having that level of support and stability and safety, if we decide to pursue a committed relationship, is also very reassuring, you know, where it's like that safe space where, like, yo, I could have had the shittiest, most chaotic, stressful day. And it's like, knowing that I'm coming home to something like very consistent and grounding is also very, very reassuring.
Yeah. So for me, I think my number one thing is the girl is happy. There's nothing worse than going to battle every day and then your girl is not happy. Like, they have to be a bubbly girl. Just mean they're happy, they smile, everyone likes them. That's probably my number one. Number 2 and 3 would just be loyalty and honesty. I'm not very possessive or very jealous. I just don't want to have to worry about it, right? So it's just like, hey, if you say something, that's how it is, right? Those are honestly my top 3. And then maybe ambition. I'd say I do like it when they're ambitious. They don't have to be building a business like me, but if they're not trying to do anything or they're not trying to personally develop, it's a turnoff for me, because that's what I want to do. And I can't relate to them on anything. It's like, hey, like, here's what happened in business. They don't understand. Here's a book I read. They don't want to read it. It's just not very entertaining for me. So I like to have a little bit of an intellectual conversation. Those would be the top 4. And there's a book I read, I was mentioning to you before we started, called The Value of Others. And they said there's 2 people in relationships. Actually, it wasn't The Value of Others. I apologize. It was, I believe it's Maine in Captivity, or The State of Affairs by Esther Perel. But she says one person in the relationship usually values the like closeness more, the togetherness, and one person is a little bit more scared of losing themselves. So it's like one person kind of fears losing the unit, and the other person gets a little scared of losing themselves. I'm that guy for sure. Whenever I'm in a relationship, I'm always, you know, like, you're getting influenced by that person. You're around them a lot. And I start wondering, you know, am I doing this because I want to do it, or am I doing it because they want me to do it? And I don't know why that's such a big thing for me. I think maybe as a young kid, growing up very religious and strict, and there was a lot of rules, I think that's made me almost against rules, or a little bit, you know, wanting to push away. I think maybe that's why I became an entrepreneur. But that's me in the relationship for sure. Like when I heard that and I read that, I was like, that's 100% me.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to lose myself. I want to, you know, you're 2 separate people and you're together, but really I think a great relationship is where you're both going towards the same direction. I think a lot of people, what happens is they're not okay with who they are. So they get validation from someone else, and then they don't want to lose that validation. So they start doing stuff out of fear and obligation. And that just doesn't work. That doesn't work. And I think that's where I got to a place of peace, because there was nothing bad going on, but I think I realized there were things I was doing out of obligation for who I was with. And I love them and I wanted to do it, but I didn't want to do it, right? Like, if they weren't there, I knew deep in my heart I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where it was tough for me. It was because you start asking yourself, well, should I just do it anyways? Or should I do what I want to do, right? Because I think discipline comes into a lot of forms of life. So just doing whatever you want, whenever you want, I don't think's the answer. But then is it always, just grind all the time? Sometimes when I live my life, I think, is that all life is just discipline all the time?
I was going to ask you, like, how do you create balance and harmony between your ambition and also just being content with where you're at?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's I've had a few moments in my life where I can look back and things have connected. So when I started business, I wanted to hit $1 million in a month. That was my goal, and we hit it in 18 months. It was crazy. It was just 0 to $1 million. It was a rocket ship, it felt like. And I remember I was looking over Miami. I was living at Thousand Museum. Just got the Lambo SVJ. I was feeling myself. Like, I just thought I was the man, right? And I had this party and people showed up, and this guy asked, what's the party for? And I was like, oh, dude, I hit $1 million in a month. I had like random people there. And he's like, cool. And then he turned away. And my look on my face probably was like this. I was like,
where's my celebration?
Like, does this guy have any idea what I just said? Like, are you crazy? And I started to realize nobody gives a shit. And when that happened, I had realized that all the anger and all the resentment and all the things that happened to me as a kid, that was why I wanted to hit $1 million in a month, to show people that I was worth something. For sure. That's 100%. And even to this day, that's part of what drives me, 100%. And then I think over time, I've gotten to a point where I realize if no one really cares, then I need to do it for myself. And it's turned more into a personal development journey. Right. So realizing that what I do doesn't really matter and no one really gives a shit. But for me to personally develop, I have to push myself. Right. Because when I went on a 6-month sabbatical and I didn't work at all, and I came back, and I actually remember thinking, holy shit, I was miserable. Like, it was because I got so used to not doing stuff. I think my set point got so low, almost like a person if they eat McDonald's every day. And I came back and I felt like pretty good one day, and it was just because I was working again. Like, I was working, I was trying to help people. You gotta go through hard stuff to personally develop. I don't think going through life doing nothing hard is the answer. So yeah, but that's kind of how I got to that conclusion. So if you detach yourself from getting validation because no one really gives a fuck anyways. That was the thing I saw. Like, even if they act like they care, they really don't care.
Yeah.
They're just like, oh yeah, like, you're cool. Maybe they can try to get something out of the situation, but they don't really care.
Yeah. So it's a lot about, I feel like that's a big part of this journey, man, is detaching from the outcomes and the expectations and really just falling in love with the person that you have to become to get to that point.
100%.
And really fucking embracing the journey, the highs and lows, and fully just riding that wave.
Yeah. And you can't win. You can't win because there's always someone who's in first place, and you're never going to be in first place. Unless you're Elon Musk, right? Like in business. You're never going to win anyways. So it just becomes this pointless game. Like, I think you should always push, but it's like you said, if you're not satisfied with where you're at, you're not living in the present moment. You're always thinking about the future or the past. It's hard to be happy. And a lot of the books, when you read them and they talk about being happy or fulfilled, it's just, all it really is you're just focusing on the present moment. You're not worried about the past. You're not worried about the future. You're just here.
Facts. Yeah, I think the new definition of quality of life, we measure like lifespan, right? The average lifespan of an American is 78 years, right? I think we should really measure lifespan by how much of your life you actually stayed in the present moment, right? If you live till 80 years old and 30 years was spent dwelling and ruminating on the past, 20 years was spent in fear of the future, you literally only spent 30 years in the present moment. So you died at age 30. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's a really great way to approach things. What are some things that you do now to really get grounded in the present?
Honestly, just being alone is really helpful. Just sitting in silence. I think something I do is I'm very busy and I'm very calculated. So my schedule is like boom, boom, boom. I'm an efficient machine, but you have to be to make money, right? Like some of my clients who I work with, the reason they don't make money is they work really hard doing a bunch of dumb shit, right? They're not efficient. So it's just really being in silence with your thoughts, I think. I actually prefer reading now more to getting advice from people because I feel I don't get influenced. Right? Like I'm reading and it's what I think it's saying, not what someone else is telling me it means. Does that make sense? So almost if you read the Bible, it's better to read the Bible yourself and think of what it means versus ask a pastor because they all going to say different shit.
Yeah.
Right? It's really those two things. So something that's really been helpful for me is I just stop asking for advice from people unless I really respect them and I really think there's something they can add. But more times than not, when I've asked for advice for people, particularly in life stuff, I wouldn't say business or like if it's a math question, like getting advice probably would make sense. It's very logical. But I think in a lot of life, you're better off not asking anyone, reading books, being alone, disconnecting from people, and then the truth will appear that way. I think asking people, it just gets you more confused because they say something and you're like, oh, maybe that. And then someone else says something and you're like, maybe this. And before you know it, you're like a bouncing ball going off the wall. Last year, spent $250,000 doing that, and it was a shit show. And everyone had good intentions, but I noticed myself justifying stuff. I'd ask someone, you know, hey, what should I do in this XYZ situation? And they'd say this, and I'd be like, yeah, but like, I don't know, they're not really, like, they're not as good off as me. Like, they're not doing as well as I am, right? And then I'd see someone doing really well, and I'm like, yeah, but like, I don't know if I want to live like exactly the way he's living. And I would just notice, no matter what they told me, it didn't matter. It didn't convince me.
Yeah.
And so after a while, I just stopped asking for advice. So that's actually been very peaceful for me too, is to realize the answers can't come from other people usually. They have to come from yourself. And I just stop asking people. Like I don't ask people for advice anymore.
Have psychedelics at all played an important role in helping you cultivate clarity and connecting you to your intuition more, whether it was ayahuasca, ibogaine?
You know, I'm actually probably scared to do it again now. When I did it, I was very desperate. I was coming from a place of desperation. I felt I didn't know what to do. I was going through a really tough breakup. I really loved this girl, but I didn't know what to do. You know, she wanted me to commit to her. I didn't know if I should commit to her. Something that's big in my life, you know, I think about that. I'm like, I do what I say I'm going to do. So when I tell someone I commit, I think 50 years, you know, I'm like, that's a long ass time, right?
Yeah.
And so I was very desperate. And so I went and did ayahuasca, and then I did bofu, and then I did ibogaine. What else did I do? I think that's just, I've done mushrooms as well. So I had a very positive experience from the standpoint of it really helped me go deep. The only way I can describe it to people without it sounding weird is I just say it's like talking to your older self. The thoughts were very profound, right? So, you know, sometimes you're sitting there and thoughts just come in your head. It was very profound thoughts, and I was able to go down the rabbit hole a little bit. I don't know if it like got me to the perfect answer, because if it did, I still wouldn't be telling you what I'm telling you now, but it got me to a better place in how to handle things. I don't know if I would do it again now, because I don't think it would give me the clarity I'm looking for now, if that makes sense. I think if you have a deep question, you should do it, but I think just doing it to do it, I wouldn't personally recommend that. And some people can go off the deep end. You know, it was a good experience for me too, because, you know, I saw some normal people there, and I was like, all right, cool. Like, it's normal. But I think sometimes when people see psychedelics or they talk about mindset, unfortunately, the faces of it sometimes are a little out there. And so it takes a person like me who's a little bit more logical and rational, and it's like, that seems a little far-fetched. But when I actually went to it, I had a really good experience, and there were very, like, quote-unquote normal people there like me who just had normal problems. And they were like, they just didn't, a lot of people, it felt like they didn't know what to do, or they couldn't handle a certain situation, so they were looking for something to try to help with it. Yeah,
you said you connected with like an older, wiser version of yourself in the future.
Yeah.
Did you at all connect with the younger version of yourself, like the inner child? Because it sounds like, based on your childhood, you didn't really necessarily have a normal childhood in regards to like playing, and like you even mentioned trying to think about hobbies for yourself that you enjoy other than football was really challenging.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I did. I had the biggest thoughts I had, they were very profound thoughts. The first one I had, and it just popped in my head, I didn't even go there for that reason, was if I should be a monk or something. Like, I actually had that thought. And I started going down that rabbit hole, and I came to the conclusion that I could help more people having businesses. So that actually really reinforced I was doing the right thing. I had a lot of deep feelings for my brothers. I remember feeling that, that I'm here to kind of like help them and take care of them. And I just remember feeling a lot of love for my girl at the time. And I just felt very empathetic. And, you know, I think I felt bad. I also felt guilty and shameful for some things I'd done that I know I shouldn't have done. I remember feeling that. But I don't know. It's really hard to describe. That's the hardest thing about doing it, is it's so hard to describe. So someone who hasn't done it, I think a lot of times they are like, I don't know, that doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's one of those things I think you have to do it to kind of, it's just a feeling. You have to feel what it feels like to understand.
Yeah, the medicine usually, whether it's ayahuasca, mushrooms, whatever, it usually gives you everything that you need, which is oftentimes different from everything that you want. Mm-hmm. You can go in there with a specific intention, and the medicine's like, nah, like, this is actually where you need to focus. This is actually where you need to pour more love into. And I think exactly what you're saying, seeing people like you, seeing people like me having open discussions about it can normalize the conversation, because we live in a society, bro. You go out in Miami Beach, right, any night, and it's completely normal in our society to just be blackout drunk and belligerent and just completely sloppy. Yeah. And then when someone talks about like mushrooms or ayahuasca, they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? And they have this stigma, but it's crazy just to see people who have normalized alcohol, vaping, antidepressants, Adderall. And then when you actually talk about a natural plant medicine that comes from Mother Earth, they're super skeptical. And that's why I think we just need to have these conversations to raise awareness in a very intentional way.
Yeah, going back to that, I remember going back to intentions. I went in there and my entire intention was, do I marry this girl or break up with her? That was my entire intention. And it was eating me up alive because, and just to be transparent, the reason it was eating me up is not because I don't love this girl. Like, I love her to death. I just didn't know if I could honestly be with one girl for the rest of my life. That was my fear. And honestly, it still is my fear. I talked to a lot of affluent guys, and it really frustrated me talking to them. First is because most people don't talk about it. It's very private. That makes sense. If someone asked me about my girl situation, I'm like, it's none of your fucking business, right?
Right.
So that was number one. It'd be tough to get guys to talk about it. Number two is some of the guys would, just their answers, it was kind of shitty.
What were most of those responses?
Some guys said, just cheat. And I was like, bro, that just did not feel in alignment with who I am. I was like, I'm not doing that. So that frustrated me, though. Some guys would say that. And like guys that some people respect. I've had guys before say, I want to be like this guy. And I'm like, bro, like, and they think they have this image of who they are. I'm like, that's not even what they do, which is fine. And I would never ruin that for someone. But what you see on social media is not what you get. What you see is what they want you to see. And that's what sometimes it frustrates me, because you'll even see girls or guys and they're like, oh, look at this couple. And I'm like, I know them. And it's like, that's not how it is.
Yeah. And it's like hashtag couples goals.
And it doesn't matter either. It's like your relationship should be your relationship, and it should look how you want it to look. But that would frustrate me. And then I have a guy who says, oh, you just deal with it. So I'm thinking, do I want to deal with it? Do I want to do something where I deal with it? And that's been, that's been like, for example, in fitness, you can have a pizza and no one's like, oh my, you had a pizza. Like, you're not fit.
You cheated. Yeah.
Yeah, you're fine. But in relationships, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if you're married to someone and you step out, you're a piece of shit. And I'm not, again, like, I don't think you should step out. But what I'm saying is, for me, that idea, it's scary for me. I don't know why it's scary. And like, we could go in circles and circles, and I've tried to figure that out. But anyways, that was what my intention was going in, is I really was like, please, like, just help me know what to do with this girl. And I didn't get like a straight up answer, but I do remember leaving feeling like, just love her and be honest, and like things will work out the way they should. Now, as of now, I'm not with her, and I wish I was with her, but we couldn't agree on some stuff. But I definitely, the funny part is the relationship is in the healthiest place it's ever been because I've gone in with that intention. Like I say exactly what I think. I'm very honest. I don't lie. And then I had to be okay with if they're not okay with that. And you got to be at peace with that. And that's been hard for me because that's usually where my conversation goes. Because my conversation is like, I like being in a relationship. I think being in a relationship is way more beneficial than being single and just like going full damn Bilzerian or something. But I think for me, for whatever reason, being with someone for that long scares me. I don't know why it does. It just does.
I think that's normal though, bro.
Yeah, it might be, right? Like I know I'm not crazy. Like I don't think I'm the only guy to say this, but there's a lot of guys who don't vocalize this. There's a lot of guys who don't vocalize this. And then what will happen is I have friends who, you know, they quote unquote deal with it, right? Or I have friends who cheat. Well, they're not really friends, honestly. So I want to say friends, but then I have friends who they're dating a bunch of girls. And so if you're religious, you have something to hold on to. I'm not super religious. Like I believe something made all this, but then it gets hard to know where to go, right? It gets hard to know what to do, at least for me, because I don't care what anyone else says. I've never lived my life that way. I want to live my life how I want to live it. And I think like having that conversation with people too, it's uncomfortable. And you know, a lot of girls don't want to hear that either, right? I mean, it's not like a very comfortable conversation, but I think I've just gotten to a place where as of now, I don't really know what I should do, but I'm at peace that I don't know yet. But I have confidence I'm going to get there.
Yeah, bro. I think you're in a great place, dude. Like, I feel like even since we last spoke, you seem very at peace.
Mentally and emotionally, yeah, like that's the right word. Is I just feel at peace. Meaning, I had a lot of guilt and shame around the fact I didn't feel sure. Because the girl I'm with, like, I love her, dude. She's amazing. She's the best girl I've ever been with. She's just like perfect. And when people are like, well, you know, what would you want differently if you didn't date her? I was like, well, I'd want her. And then we just agree on this thing, right? Or things, whatever they were. And I had to get to peace being just telling her how I felt. And if she was not okay with it, walking away, which is tough when you really love someone, right? Because like the thought is, do I just do it anyways? Or is that bad, right? But I guess to summarize what you said, I'm just more at peace with it. I wasn't at peace with it before.
Yeah.
I really struggled with that because I'd feel like a piece of shit, or I felt what's wrong with me. I genuinely prayed, like I would pray that like, please help me feel the way she wants me to feel.
All right, I hate to interrupt this epic conversation, but if you are enjoying this podcast right now, it would mean the absolute world if you could leave a review wherever you happen to be listening, whether that is YouTube, Spotify, iTunes. Honestly, word of mouth is my oxygen, and we want this message to go out to as many people as possible as we raise the collective vibration of humanity. So please take 8 or 9 seconds to just leave 5 stars, say some nice words, and now let's get back to the show. How do you think the guilt and shame that you experienced navigating that situation impacted the way that you showed up in business? Did it impact it? Oh, yeah, because of course, like, and this is important because, you know, for the last year, I was like navigating a lot of heavy shit regarding relationship, business, etc. And I realized all of the lower vibrations I was carrying on to, whether it was anger, resentment, fear, how that was literally like causing my body to contract. I was getting easily triggered. I wasn't showing up in the most joyful state that I typically show up in. Yeah. Like I was less motivated to crush workouts. Like it was literally impacting every area of my life. And I think oftentimes we don't really connect the two. Mm-hmm. So how was the guilt and shame that you experienced impacting your business and other areas?
It's usually how you described it. I'd be in a bad mood. I wouldn't feel very good. I'd lash out more. I'd be angry, right? Because the hard thing to grapple with is when when people are telling you the way you feel about something is bad, but you don't have bad intentions. You're like, if I said, hey, do you like apples? And you said no, I'm like, oh, you're a piece of shit. You're like, well, wait, like, am I a piece of shit? Or like, is there something wrong with me? And I think that's very difficult because I think there's right and wrong where I think we can all agree, like, you shouldn't lie, you shouldn't cheat, you shouldn't steal, you shouldn't kill someone, those types of things. But if you don't have bad intentions and you're doing something or you've had thoughts that are maybe against what's normal or what people think you should do, it's tough, man, because you start questioning yourself. You start wondering if there's something wrong with you. You start wondering if like you're a piece of shit or like, you know, those are the thoughts I had. I was like, what's wrong with me? Because especially when you're with an amazing person, like when you're with a 10 out of 10 person and you don't see eye to eye on something, you start like, I really question myself a lot. But I think I got to a point where just like in business or in fitness, I just went all in. Like I did everything I could possibly think of to be a good boyfriend. I like zero, like no porn at all. Like it was like non-negotiable. Like no jerking off, non-negotiable. Like no missing sex. Like X amount of times a week. No missing date nights. Like I just went as hard as I could to be like the world's best boyfriend. Is actually one of my affirmations. Like I'd say like I'm the world's best boyfriend. And then when I got to the end of it and we still couldn't see eye to eye, that's where I had peace, where it's the feeling of I've done everything I know how to do and I still don't feel sure, and I have to be okay with that, even though it still bothers me. Like it does bother me. Yeah. But it's like if you, like, for example, the reason I don't have any guilt or shame around not making it to the NFL is there's nothing else I could have done. There's literally nothing else I could have done to make it to the NFL. Like
maybe if you drink your own urine, perhaps
that
could have given you like
rub it all over myself.
Exactly, bro.
Yeah, if I rub
no
it all
one would want to be near you.
Yeah, dude. Now now I'm gonna feel guilty about it that I didn't do that.
My bad, dog. Shit. Sorry,
but hopefully that makes sense. And because before the truth is, and I think this is where guilt and shame comes from, and regret. Is I just knew deep down I hadn't done everything I could have done. I knew that I could have been a better boyfriend and I wasn't. So when I felt unsure, I felt like shit. But when you do everything you know you're supposed to do and you still feel that way, I think you have to give yourself grace to just say it's okay.
Yeah.
Even though it's tough, even though you may want to know the answer, but you don't know.
Does this person live in Miami?
Yeah.
Oh. So do you still see them or not really?
Not right now.
Yeah.
It's just at a place where it's either, you know, get married or don't get married. And I just felt that it was at a point where she wasn't going to leave.
Yeah.
And so I had to really look in the mirror and say, if I'm not going to give her what she wants, it's not right for me to keep her around. So it was really shitty in that aspect because I want to be with her, but we couldn't agree on some stuff. And so, yeah, we're not talking right now, but it was the best. The funny part is the relationship's the healthiest it's ever been, but we broke up, you know? It's kind of weird.
Well, sometimes it's the space that creates the clarity. And sometimes it actually requires someone's absence to realize how much you love their presence. And I know that's true for me when I look back at, you know, my most recent relationship. She lives in a different country. And honestly, I'm surprised at how much I miss her. And even just having all of the different opportunities that I do in Miami,
right?
It's like there's many moments where I'm like, damn, it would be really dope to share this experience with this person, you know?
No, yeah, 100%.
You know, so I want to transition this conversation because we've been talking about a lot of sensitive, sappy shit. And I want to pick your brain, dog, about fucking making millions, bro. I'm curious to know, like, growing up in your household, right? Were you like middle class in Utah?
Yeah, my dad was a teacher. My mom stayed at home, 7 kids. My dad made more money from his extra gigs than he did from being a teacher.
Okay, got it. So I'm curious to know for you, you know, now you've generated what, like over $100 million in sales on the internet the last 6 or 7 years.
Yeah.
Right? First of all, congratulations. That's fucking dope.
Thanks.
Secondly, I'm curious to know, like, what limiting beliefs did you need to shed most to step into the version of yourself that could generate $100 million by the age of 32?
Yeah, so the first one was when I was 12-ish. And, you know, as a kid, I grew up, I was pretty sheltered, and I started getting picked on a lot, and I would come home crying. And I remember my dad, he may not remember, but my dad said something. He said, you know, son, if it was from football. And he's like, you know, son, if you're going to keep coming home crying every day, maybe you shouldn't play. And I don't know what about that triggered something in my brain, but I remember thinking, oh, like, my dad can't fucking help me. Right. And then, you know, I was like, I would pray every night, like, please don't let these guys fuck with me. It's like, that wasn't working either. So it was, I think the first thing was like, you can have whatever you want, but you got to go fucking take it. And that really, at that point, there was a trigger switch in my brain that just went off. So that was number one, is And my dad worked so hard growing up. Like as kids, he would take us to clean buildings and like do power washing, and because we had to make money. Like we had 7 fucking kids, you know, he's a teacher. So growing up, I just had a very, I would say, hardworking childhood, and I didn't realize that wasn't normal. For most, you know, I got older and I just worked way harder than most people. Number 2 is once football ended, because my whole goal from that point was to play football in the NFL, is I remember I saw an ad, it was Billie Jean. I saw an ad of Billie Jean, and Billie Jean's great, right? But honestly, when I saw the ad and this guy was talking about how much money he made, I just thought, like, bro, if this fucking guy can make a ton of money, I should be able to make a ton of money.
Right.
So instead of most people are like, oh, he's a scammer or whatever else, I literally just thought, there's no fucking way if this guy can do it, I can't do it. And really from there, I just took off because I had a deep fear of not being good enough from being bullied. That's why I did a lot of the things I did, because when I got bullied and I started doing well in sports and I started getting girls, no matter what they said, right? No matter what cool joke they said, it's like, I'm bigger than you. Shut the fuck up. Yeah, it's like, my girl's higher than you. Shut the fuck up. It's like, I make more money than you. Like, it just, no one can really argue with that, right? Like they can say whatever stupid joke they want, but I really liked it when I would do that. And then people would be like, and they're like, yeah, man. I was like, yeah, fuck you, you know, as a kid in my head.
Yeah.
So I think as an adult, that's part of what did drive me. I still do have that a little bit. Like I definitely do have some insecurity, and I think that's why I keep pushing, because, you know, it's one of those things you can say, right? It's like, you know, someone talks shit about you. It's like, well, I mean, what have you done, right?
Yeah.
Even though that's probably not the best frame, it's a little bit of dark energy. But those were the 2 biggest things. It was just realizing that I could have whatever I wanted, but I needed to figure it out. And then it was just seeing Billie Jean and seeing someone who, like, quote unquote, looked average or like didn't have a good childhood and like, you know, and nothing on the surface where I was like, what does this guy have that I don't have? There's nothing. And just realizing like I had to go get it. I had to take it. And I didn't want to be a loser. So whenever I would quit or get close to quitting, because I almost did multiple times, I just remember thinking, oh, fuck, like they're going to fucking laugh at me. They're going to think I'm such a loser. And I would just get triggered again and go right back into working. Like I just didn't want to quit.
Yeah. That's really powerful, the way that you framed that when you saw that Billie Jean ad. Because I know a lot of people spend time scrolling mindlessly on social media, and they might see someone and they're like, who the fuck is this? Yeah. Right. And they almost have like this resentment towards this person that they don't even know.
Right.
And they just see this highlight reel, like what? They assume this person maybe got lucky to get where they got. But you had this curiosity. Yeah. You're like, yo, shit. Okay. If this dude who seems pretty normal and average is fucking crushing it, then if I tap into my potential, then I can create similar and even better results. I think that's a really powerful frame to have, though.
Well, it's the only frame to have. You know, once you see one person who's making a ton of money, you know it's real. So if I see someone, and let's say hypothetically, oh, this guy's full of shit and he's inflating numbers, it's like, who cares, bro? Like, who cares? Just find the stuff that's helpful and ignore the rest. It's such a waste of energy, right? Like you see people commenting on everyone's stuff. It's like, I don't think I ever comment on anyone's shit. Like, I don't know if they could like tally up the comments I've done on Instagram. I think maybe I have like 4 comments, and it's on my friend's posts, like saying congrats or something.
Yeah.
There's people who make a ton of money. It's real. It's out there. They do it. Just find the information that's helpful and ignore the rest. And I don't care what anyone else is doing anyways. It's irrelevant. It's not your journey. It's their journey. Let them have it.
That's also a really powerful mindset to have, because, you know, in the last 3 or 4 years, I got really proactive speaking out against big pharma, speaking out against all the shit that was happening during COVID, right? Getting shadow banned, being called an anti-vaxxer, being called a super spreader because I didn't get the jab. All of these things, bro. I've been called a fat shamer, like any name under the sun.
The super spreader is interesting.
And what I've realized in that journey, bro, is like, none of the people that have criticized me or talked shit about me or done any of these things have been doing anything meaningful with their life.
Yeah,
like,
of course.
If you're in a place where you're directing your energy towards talking shit behind a keyboard or trying to bring someone else down, you have nothing going on in your life. Correct. And I think that should be reassuring for a lot of people, because I think one of the biggest things like one of the biggest hurdles that I've jumped over, and I think it's something that a lot of people struggle with in their journey of entrepreneurship or creating content, is like the fear of judgment or the fear of the opinions of other people, right? When you realize that like everyone has their own insecurities and you're never going to be really criticized by anyone who's doing meaningful shit in their life because they're way too focused on their vision and making a positive impact, that should provide you peace. That should give you the energy to actually start living in alignment with your purpose.
Yeah, it's not efficient. That's the main reason successful people don't talk shit is it's not efficient. It is not worth my time to sit there and think about that when I could be thinking on building my own stuff. That's the truth. And because I'm such an efficient person, I'm like, bro, I just don't care. Like some shit, I'm like, I don't care, dude. Like it's just like, because it's not even worth it because it just distracts me from what I'm trying to do.
Has anyone, I mean, I'm sure there have been people that have talked shit about you in the online space, calling you a scammer, saying like shit like that. Like,
I mean,
has there ever been a time where someone said something in that space regarding your work, regarding what you're building, that's really gotten...
Not to me directly. Like, I don't see a lot of it, but I'm sure it happens, of course. Like, I would think I'd be lying if I said no one's ever said I'm a piece of shit or scammer or whatever, right? But there's two things. The first thing is just understanding the space we're in. For whatever reason, if you're in internet marketing, you sell a course, you do coaching, you do consulting, that is viewed like in society as like it's a scammy. Like it's kind of that negative connotation. So the first thing is like it's just part of the industry you're in, right? Yeah. If you're a tech, like if I build my tech company, no one's gonna say it's a scam.
Yeah,
because they just like, oh, you're a tech CEO. Fuck, like it's just looked at different. And then number two is then just understanding that's a story they tell themselves, right? So it took me a long time to understand this, but whenever you get triggered by someone, there's something in them that you see that bothers you. That's 100% what it is. And I used to hate that because if I saw someone was like, no, I don't. I hate him because he's a piece of shit. Like, fuck that guy. Yeah. But there would be parts of him that I would see in myself or like that would reflect back to me because life is a mirror. It's not a window. Like, I love that phrase. It's like, it's a mirror. So when you see people, if something about them bothers you, the reason it bothers you is there's something in them that is truthful that triggers you. Right, you're like maybe the guy is kind of selfish, and then you're like, oh fuck that guy, he's selfish. You're like, maybe you're kind of selfish. Maybe you've had those thoughts before, right? And so once I got to that point, I realized when they're lashing out, it's because there's some pain internal, and when you can, it's different from hearing it and believing it. Like when you actually get to the point where you actually believe that, and you're like, oh, that guy's saying mean stuff to me or fucked up stuff to me because he's hurt. It just doesn't affect you anymore because you realize, oh, that's just some story he's telling himself and he has some trauma. And so you're just like, it's all good.
Facts.
Versus in the past, you take everything personally and then you like have to prove yourself and all this stuff. And I remember like people can say stuff about you, but you don't have to believe them. Just because someone says something about you, that doesn't make it true. But a lot of times the reason it bothers us is we think it's true.
Right.
This will be a funny example, but for example, when I was growing up and I was in my 20s, I started doing fitness modeling. So of course, a lot of fitness modeling, it's a lot of gay photographers and stuff. So everyone was like, oh, Tanner's gay, right? And I just thought it was like funny. I was like, yeah, dude, like whatever. Like I would just like go with it. But the funny part is I would have friends in that industry who get really upset, like almost violent. And then guess what would happen a few years later? They were gay. So the reason they got so mad when people said they were gay is they were, and they didn't want people to know because they felt shame around it. That's 100% why they got triggered. I didn't get triggered because I was like, well, I mean, I'm not, but like, whatever, I didn't care because I was like, it's not true. Mm-hmm. So that's a funny example. And there's other ones, but it bothers you because there's truth. And that though is where you can personally grow because you can go, ooh, that's interesting. Like instead of getting upset, you're like, that guy said I'm a piece of shit scammer and that bothered me. Maybe there's something about that I need to learn. Or maybe there's something I could do better. Maybe something about my programs aren't that good. I think that's just that's 100% the best way to handle it, and that is the best way to view it because it's the truth.
I think that was really well said. And going back to authenticity, the more authentic you become, the more confident you become speaking your truth, the more you're going to trigger people. Mm-hmm. Because most people lack the ability to be authentic and speak their truth unapologetically. So if they see someone else doing it, they're like, yo, fuck that person. They're arrogant or they're cocky. Right? I've heard all of that shit. And at the end of the day, like you said, we're all just mirrors for each other.
Right.
So you might see me speaking into the camera with confidence and you get triggered by it because you know that you have the same potential inside of you, but you're not stepping into it. And I just am a mirror for you to step into more of your power and potential. And if we can approach every single relationship as just a mirror, like how can I learn from this person? How can I grow from this person? Both their positives and maybe their deficiencies, and use that as just a mechanism to elevate ourselves. I think that's the best way that we can approach any sort of relationship.
Yeah. And what I said earlier about the people I respect, I think the reason I realized I respect them over time is I said they were sure and I'm not sure. And that's why I respect them, because I want to be sure. I want to be like them. That's why I respect them.
Yeah.
Right. Because I'm like, man, fuck, like I want to feel the way you feel. You know what I mean? Like I want to feel certain. So yeah, I mean that it took me a lot. I paid a lot of coaches and read a lot of books to get to that point, because I think I was living a lot of my life reactive, meaning I didn't realize that you could choose, and it didn't make sense to me. So, if someone punches you in the face, I'm like, well, what do you want me to do? If the guy punched me in the face, I'm going to punch him back. What I realized is that if you decide who you want to be before, then you'll act different in situations. So to illustrate the point, one of my mentors, he can't hear that well, and he was on FaceTime outside of prison. And so the guy thought he was filming him, but he's on FaceTime, right? So the prisoner takes a rock, throws it on his car, like breaks his windshield. It's like, he's probably like a $500,000 car. And so what would I have done? I probably would be like, yo, fuck this guy, and like got him in trouble, honestly. Right? Because like, what the fuck, dude? I wasn't even doing anything. But what he did is part of what he does is like, he just, he has like, you can say his document. So like, let's say he's like, I'm always patient, I'm always kind. Like he has like really positive stuff, right? And I think a lot of us, we know who we want to be. And what he did is he just went up to the guy. He's like, dude, I'm so sorry, XYZ, ABC. And the guy completely matched him. And that's where I started to realize that life's a mirror, meaning you can get people to change, but a lot of times what we do is we blame that person. It's like, well, he shouldn't have got upset, whatever. But the thing is even if the person shouldn't have got upset, like that situation, if you stay calm, people usually will match you. And that was the closest thing I've ever gotten to feeling godlike, where like, if you can control yourself and you can handle your shit, even if someone acts out of turn, people usually will match you, right? But what happens is someone gets mad and then you get mad and then it like spirals out of control. And so I didn't realize you have a lot more control over your life than you think. Yeah. But it took me going to him and him saying, look, most people are living life by reacting. But if you choose what you're going to do beforehand, when you get in those situations, you'll act differently. And that's how you change. Because I'm a huge believer in this. I don't feel any fucking different, to be frank. The same stuff that pisses me off when I was like 25, a lot of it still pisses me off now. The difference is when I feel it, I don't act on it. But you can feel angry inside and still be calm, right? You can feel disappointed and still be calm. I think as I got older, I thought I would feel differently. You don't feel differently, I don't think. I think if you're just mature and wise, you just act differently, and that's what makes the outcome, and that's where you get in touch with your higher self. That's at least my take.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely think, one of the most important qualities to have as like a masculine leader too is being able to fully feel your feelings and emotions, not suppressing them and pushing them down, and not be a slave to your emotions where you're constantly reacting, but you actually can take a breath, you can ground, and you can respond in a very intentional way. So it's like this dance between being able to fully feel the emotions, not ignore and push them down, because we know what that does. That just manifests into inflammation in the physical body, and then actually respond with intention. And dude, even just like this conversation, I feel like there's more authenticity on your behalf being tapped into. I don't know if you can feel the energy, but it's really dope to see.
I'm just more at peace. Like I think when you're not at peace with where things are at and you feel a lot of guilt and shame, you don't really want to bring it up because you feel guilty and shameful about it. I think because I've done my best and I still don't know what to do, like I'm just okay with that. And it really did bother me. Like because I'm just a very type A person. Like I want to know where I'm going. I want to know what I'm doing. Like I got plans, I got goals. it's weird to be in a space where I'm not 100% sure what to do. Yeah. Right. It feels weird. And I've talked to my parents. I mean, I've talked to my parents, my mentors, my friends, everyone. And, but I just got to peace with it. And the way you get to peace with stuff is you do your best, but you know what your best is, right? Like if I had been dating that girl and I hadn't, you know, even if it's not a huge deal, like that's not even the point. Like if I had been looking at porn, if I had been jerking off, if I had like not stuck to the date nights, I just know that if we had split, that I would have been like, fuck, but like, what if I had done that? Those are the thoughts that kill you. That's where the guilt and shame comes from. This last round, I just told myself and I made a promise, like I would do everything to a T, and I did. And I didn't feel different. Like, and that was my goal, is like, if I do everything to a T, will I feel different? Will I feel like I'm ready to commit to, you know, a life of marriage or whatever? Even though it's not that I don't want to marry her. Like if she sees this or like I do, and I've said that, but we just didn't align on stuff. And obviously, like, I don't want to get divorced and I don't want to be a piece of shit and lie. But I think, yeah, you mentioning that, I'm just more at peace this time. Last time we talked, I just really wasn't at peace. And so it's harder to be authentic when you don't feel like you're being honest, or like you're not at peace with where you're at.
Well, I think it's also important just for people like yourself as well to just share some of these things, because it's very easy to just look at your profile or look at what you've created in the world and just be like, yo, this dude's just crushing every aspect of life. And I think the people that we actually admire most in the world are the people that are flawed and they're imperfect. And we're like, yo, like, I respect that person because they're fucking human, you know? And you see it so much, especially in a city like Miami. And I have so many girls that I'm very close friends with, and they fall into the same trap of like being an attractive girl, and their whole feed on social media is this highlight reel of them at nice dinners, on the boat, etc. But I know when I talk to them, there's so much more depth
to like
them.
Appears, right.
And I can see that there's like this void in their life, like this void in their soul, because they know that they're not fully speaking their truth and sharing their heart, because they've almost become a slave to this algorithm.
Right.
And I think if we're not careful, that's what can happen, especially in the space that we're in, living in a city like Miami. It's very easy to get consumed by all of the material world. So when you're actually doing the work to understand yourself better and get out of your head into your heart and actually feel your feelings fully, I think that's where the real growth happens.
Yeah.
You know,
I may be projecting, but I found it extremely frustrating when I was coming through the ranks, making a ton of money, that I couldn't find guys who would give me the real scoop about their relationships. Because to your point, it's not a cocky thing. It's just when you have a lot of money and you're over 6 foot and you work out a little bit, you have a lot of options, way more options than the average guy, right? So I think some guys, what will happen is they get what they can get. We'll put it that way. They get what they can get. You're 4 foot, you're kind of chubby, you're not really got any girls. So it's like, you're like, oh yeah, like this is the best way to live. It's like, that's the only way you can live. And I'm not like, I just felt that way. You see a guy like Travis Scott and they'll stone him to death. They're like, oh, Travis Scott cheated and all this stuff. It's like, bro, Travis Scott can get any girl he wants at any time, anywhere. So it's like, it's a totally different frame for him than it would be for you. And again, I'm not saying you should do anything wrong or be dishonest, but I found that really frustrating because it was really hard. I mean, even now it's hard to get answers. And I think I'm at a point now where it doesn't matter, where I've realized like asking other people what they do is not going to make me feel more convicted. But that was always a real struggle for me because I deep down, like I really do value relationships over being a single degenerate. But I would always ask guys, I'm like, bro, like, you know, how do you do it forever? Because that's really where society's at. And how do you do it forever honestly, right? And not go, you know what I mean? Do you remember when the Ashley Madison stuff came out?
There's Ashley Madison.
Ashley Madison's that website. I'm glad you don't know. That's a good sign. Ashley Madison is a website where people were doing, it's affairs for married people. And it leaked a few years ago. And dude, I don't know how, I think they said something, there's like 30 or 40 million people on there in the US. And I'm thinking, holy
no way.
Yeah, it was a huge number.
That's 10% of
and
the
it was
population.
Like, yeah, and it was like, life's too short not to have an affair is their slogan or some shit. And so when that came out, I was thinking, the thought I have is this, and this is just where I get frustrated. Is I go, man, if that many people are doing that or cheating or lying or whatever, it's like, even if society has this idea of like marriage, I'm like, it doesn't seem like it's working that well.
Yeah.
And like my parents are super religious. They've been together forever. And I said, Mom, like that, it's frustrating to me to see that, because like I'm super open-minded. Like I want to believe in that stuff. Like I want to be with someone forever. I want to like, but when you see that stuff, it just really makes you go, damn, like who's doing that? And there's really no conversation around it, because obviously it's very taboo. It's very personal. It would ruin guys' careers. I mean, but it really did frustrate. Basically, the point I'm just trying to make is I wish there had been more of a group or a collection of guys where I felt I could talk to them, because it's very different for guys who are at a very high level, right? Most of the girls are going for guys at a high level. And I'm not saying that in a cocky way. I'm just saying when you have a lot of money and you're over 6 foot and all these other things, like you can get a lot of women. And so it's a different ball game than a guy who, you know, he doesn't have those options.
Yeah. Real quick, just because so many of you have been asking me about microdosing, I wanted to let you know that we just launched a very special opportunity for you to start your microdosing journey for just $222 per month. This includes the microdoses being shipped to you, and it also includes live coaching with me every single week and access to the best content that's gonna help you defeat your anxiety, defeat your ADHD naturally, and escape big pharma forever. So if you are ready to tap in to deeper levels of focus, flow state, and presence, this is your sign to start your microdosing journey today. There's no long-term commitment. You can literally try it for 30 days and witness how your life transformed. Now, let's get back to the show. It's funny, try to talk to my dad about this too, because my dad was a doctor, but like also kind of like a nerdy, goofy guy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But like still such a sweet dude. And I'm sure, and like I know my dad definitely had opportunities, just because like a doctor, especially a neurologist, is a very respected, prestigious job.
Yeah, very hard.
You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, like my dad doesn't know what it's like to have different types of women in the DMs and just like be hosting events and like, again, all of this inbound.
Right.
So I really relate and resonate. And I think honestly, it's an opportunity, because I do think there's a lack of role models in that space of men who are super successful in business, who are like living a life in alignment with their purpose, who are healthy, who are jacked, and who are showing up in a powerful way as a committed husband and father.
Yeah.
And I think for me, and this has come up in multiple ayahuasca journeys, is like, that is one of my soul's calling, is embodying that at some point in my life, whenever that happens to be, like really showing up in that way and being someone that other young men can look up to and be like, yo, that dude's really doing it. And he's doing it in a way that not many other people are doing it.
Yeah, and I think that's great, man. There was staying on that same thread, there was another guy, I don't want to mention him because everyone's going to know who he is, but he's very well known in the space. And I remember a lot of my buddies were like, dude, I want to be like this guy. He's got great family, great wife, all this stuff. And then lo and behold, if, you know, they go to court and they get divorced, and then in the papers in the court, you know, it was like physical abuse or something, right?
Really?
And bro, that stuff, I shouldn't worry about what other people do, but that stuff really fucks with my head. Because I'm thinking, you have this guy who everyone is like looking at as a role model, and it's like, what you see is what you see. It's not what's going on. And that was just, it just really mind boggled me, right? Where you're going, that's where I question it. You know, it's like, what's actually going on? Like, what should I do? And I don't know. Obviously you can tell I'm really passionate about it, and it's been a big question on my mind, but I think that's it. I just get frustrated from the standpoint of I'm trying to be my best and I'm trying to do my best. And sometimes it doesn't feel like there's a clear answer. And so I'm like on that path trying to find it. I do know when I do find it though, there's going to be a massive, just like, I feel like I'm going to feel this massive relief, because this has probably been a 2-year journey at this point. And I
Yeah.
I didn't even think growing up this would be something I would think about. It was it was just.
Are your parents, would you say your parents are happy together? Like, is that a relationship?
I do, but they're very religious, and they really, like, my parents. I respect my dad because he really believes what he believes.
Yeah.
But I think that's what really holds them together. I think for me, as I grew up, I got turned off a little bit from it because of how rigid it was. And I tell my dad, I say, you know what, Dad, sometimes I wish I was religious because it'd be easier to know what to do.
It narrows the pool.
Yeah, because there's nothing, like, you just do what you're told to do. But because I'm not, unfortunately, it makes it a little bit, you can go any direction. So all of a sudden you're going, well, shoot, if I can go any direction, which of these directions is right?
Yeah.
And when you look out in the world, everyone's doing different shit. So you don't really get any clarity doing that, right? So anyways, I unfortunately, I think I'm on the slow path, which the slow path of learning is you try stuff and you get.
But dude, you're 32, bro.
Right, I know.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's also important to know, like, and you kind of touched on this earlier. Being a 32-year-old man, I just turned 34. Being 32 as a man is so much different than being 32 as a woman.
Oh, I mean, well, and I never really paid attention to this as I was growing up, but now that I'm in my 30s, you realize that just society, for most women, their value is at peak in their 20s, and it goes way down in their 30s. And guys, our value is trash in our 20s, and then it goes way up in our 30s, way up.
It's very interesting.
But I know, and I just never really noticed it because I had my head down. But now that my head's above water, you get it. Like, it makes sense because men, on average, we are deemed valuable for resources, so it takes time to get it for most of us, right?
This is the first time in American history, I believe, where there's more women over the age of 30 that aren't childbearing.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks to what we're talking about. Like, there's women who are, in their 30s right now, more than half of them, who aren't in a relationship. They're single. And maybe they were following that narrative in their 20s, like, I'm going to be a bad bitch, I don't need a man. Or they were just busy having fun and living up their 20s. And now it's like, oh shit, I'm 34, I'm single, I want to start a family, but it's actually hard to find a man that is someone that is aspirational, that wants to be with me.
Yeah, because just on average, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but on average, women are deemed valuable for their beauty. So in their 20s, right? And men are deemed valuable for resources. And that's just how the cookie crumbles. And so as women get older, they're not deemed as valuable to men. They're like, why would I take a 34-year-old when I could take a 26-year-old? I'm not saying that's right or wrong. It's how it works. And I didn't really notice that till I got in my 30s and I started reading books, and like dating more. Because in my 20s, I was just so head down. I didn't want to date girls, but part of the reason I didn't want to date girls is I knew I had nothing to offer. That was a thought I had. I was like, I'm not going to get any good girls because I live at my dad's house, like there's nothing I can do. But yeah, it's interesting to see. And it's interesting to see that dynamic too, because going back to what I told you, when you've worked your whole life to get to a certain point, it's hard. I think that might be part of where it's hard for me too, is I feel, man, I worked so hard to get to this point, and now the girl I'm in love with wants me to give it all up. And it's like, I also want to be clear, like, I don't disagree with like what she wants or like what she's saying. It makes
What do you mean
sense.
give it all up?
Just commit to married life, right? Like, have kids, all that stuff, right?
But not like give up your pursuit in business.
No. But I think the way I viewed it and what's been tough for me is I've worked my whole life in business. I'm super in shape. Like it's like go. And then if I were to have a family right now, it's like, that's more responsibility. It's like, now I got to take care of my wife. Like, and I want to be a really good husband, right? Like, I got to take care of my kids. I got to be a really good dad. That's more. So I think sometimes I don't think life should be all play by any means. I think it should be more work than anything. But I think when I've been in those scenarios in my head, I think, man, my whole life's going to be work. Like my entire day is going to be work because it's wife, kids, business, fit, and there's no time for anything else. And I think that thought scares me a little bit.
Yeah.
Where it's like,
feel scared a little bit though.
Yeah, I think I'm a lot scared though. I mean, it's been a big thing for me, right? It's been a big thing because I think I value my freedom a lot.
Yeah.
I don't value it more than being in a relationship, but you got to see eye to eye.
Yeah. Well, that's important that you just said the word freedom, right? Because that's a core value for you. So that means it's like, okay, during conversations, it's like, hey, freedom really matters to me. Well, what does freedom even mean? Yeah. Right? Because we all have different definitions. Like success to you might be 10 million a month. To success to me might be 100K a month. And I'm like, let's fucking go.
I think for me, I like having the ability to change, to choose, like to move. Yeah. Right. So for example, like I eat healthy most of the time, but if I want to have a pizza, it's not like, oh dude, like if you eat that pizza, like, you know, you're done for. Like you girls won't date you anymore. But you can't do that in a monogamous relationship. Like you can't just be like, oh, hey, you know, like I'm going to step out, you know, tomorrow. And they're like, no. Right. And I think that thought's, for whatever reason, it's just been terrifying for me. And I think sometimes it's hard to admit that. Like sometimes I feel less than for saying that, right? Yeah. Like something's wrong with me, but it's just like, it's just honest feeling I have where I think about being with one person for 50 years and it's like, it's a big thought for me. I don't know why.
You've probably encountered a lot of super successful guys, probably older. Yeah. Right. And I've worked with clients and I see the impact that their marriage and family life has had on them. Yeah. Like can be in their 50s and 60s and like have achieved all of the material things, all the success, but like they have a shitty relationship with their kids. They have 2 ex-wives and they're fucking miserable, bro. Yeah. They have 0 inner peace, even though they have all the material things. And then on the other side of the spectrum, like my mentor, for example, he's a self-made billionaire. And when I observe his family dynamic and the peace that it gives him, like that is such a powerful foundation for him. And he even told me actually, he's like, bro, you know, as men, we have this belief that we're the providers, that it's our responsibility to create financial abundance, which is true. And what he opened up for me was like, he's like, bro, my wife is actually the source of our financial abundance because she creates such a peaceful space for me to go out and build and do what I do. And I know I'm going to come home and just feel the love and feel the support. And if I didn't have that, my life would be chaos. Yeah. It would be filled with stress. And that really opened up that portal for me with like, oh, wow. Like that's such an interesting perspective that I haven't been really exposed to before. Yeah. You know?
And I agree with you. That's the thing. Like when someone asks me, right, it's weird because it's a dichotomy. Like I value my freedom, but I prefer to be in a relationship. Yeah. But technically by being in a relationship, you're giving up a little freedom, right? And I agree with everything you just said. I just think where my head starts going is like, okay, maybe I'm not mature enough yet, right? Maybe it's not the right time. Like, I don't know, but I think it's why it's a little bit frustrating where sometimes I feel, I don't know. I just wish someone could tell me. They're like, Tanner, listen, when you turn 33, this is going to happen.
Yeah. But like, you know, but I also think I think, and like, this isn't even advice, but I think you can take a little pressure off yourself.
I'm trying to.
Just allow yourself to like really trust the flow. Like, I don't know what your belief is in a higher power, God, universe, whatever. But I've learned that usually God, when we're living in alignment and doing the right things, God really gives us what we're ready for when we're ready to receive it. Like, and, you know, similar to money, I think, you know, a lot of times people, myself included, like I was hoping to be further along at certain points in my life. And I realized looking back, I was like, maybe I just wasn't ready to receive that money because I wouldn't have been intentional or responsible with it. Yeah. And I think it's the same with relationships.
And I agree. I think in relationships, what I worry about with that is I agree. Like I think based on everything I've gone through, like I'm doing the right thing right now. But I think when you have a lot of love for that person, you're afraid of losing them. Yeah. Like, I mean, I really am. Like, I'm afraid that she'll meet someone else or I'll take too long to like, you know, pull my head out of my ass or whatever you want to call it and she'll be gone. And so that made it really hard for me to go down this path because that's the fear. That's the fear of the other side, right? Is you're going to lose this great person and you might look back and have regret that you were being a numbnuts, right?
I want to shift and I'm really appreciating this conversation, bro. It's been fun. Good way to spend a Saturday afternoon.
I didn't realize we were gonna go this deep, but here we are.
Yeah, dude. This is the good shit, though, dude. This is the good shit. I want to transition and just ask you, like, what do you think? Because I know you post different content about like yo, like this is what you need to do to get to 10K a month, right? Like you've been going hard, I think recently too, on just being like, yo, get active as fucking your DMs. Just fucking DM, get in your DMs, like do outbound until you hit 50K a month.
Sure.
Right? What would you say is maybe 2 or 3 big shifts to go from 50K a month to a couple 100K a month?
Yeah. It's just team. The biggest issue for the two types of clients I have, they have low skill. They suck at sales, they suck at messaging. They have a bad offer, they don't have any mental resilience. They're just low skill. The next type of client is they have good enough skills, but they're not good at building teams. They're not good at leading, right? They just don't really know how to find talent, hire talent. Even when they get the talent, they have no idea how to lead. They're just like, yeah, fucking do it, this and that. I'm like, people don't want to work for you. Those are the two types of issues. So if someone was actually going to go from 50K to 200K, they're going to have at least, depending on the business, let's say it's a high ticket business, 8 to 10 people. And they're going to have to know how to manage and have SOPs and stuff like that. And a lot of people can't do it. You can make $100,000 a month with a couple people, right? And you can be a pretty terrible leader and manager. But really past that, it just doesn't work because your business is only as good as the people you have. And that means like the best businesses, honestly, now that I've been in the space a long time, it's all about who you hire. It's 100% who you hire. Because when I have the most stress, is because I have shitty people on my team who aren't doing what they're supposed to do. And then I have to look in the mirror and realize I hired them. When I have low stress, I have really high quality people on my team who are taking care of business. And then I don't get involved because there's nothing for me to do because they're doing it. That is absolutely for sure the only way to gain leverage at scale. And if you can't do that and you can't learn how to lead, the cool thing too is if you learn how to lead, you don't have to have any other skills. If you know how to assemble a team like the Avengers, you're just like, all right, go fight. I'm done. That's all you have to do. But most people, it's the hardest skill to learn and they never learn it. So their businesses never scale. That's honestly the biggest thing they would have to do.
What would you say are the two to three most important positions to hire and make sure like those people are dialed in?
Yeah. I think first is the fulfillment manager or like whatever you want to call it, account manager, coach. You shouldn't be in any fulfillment. As a CEO, you really cannot be in any fulfillment at scale because fulfillment takes the most time. It's also technically the least important, meaning your business will stay in business if you have shitty fulfillment, but it won't stay in business if you can't make sales. So usually the CEO should be focused on the sales and the marketing because that is the most important thing for the business to survive. So be fulfillment. Then after that, it's going to be some type of setter manager. So someone who's managing the lead generation. So making sure like whether it's DMs or, calling on the phone. And then outside of that, it's going to be a solid sales rep. And if you have a good setter manager, you have a solid sales rep who can close and you have good fulfillment, like you'll have so much stress off your plate. The clients I have who really struggle and they can't scale is they keep hiring the wrong person. The person doesn't work hard. So then they're basically paying them and doing their job. Like if you pay someone money, you shouldn't have to be doing their job. I'm not saying you shouldn't manage, but if you're constantly telling them the same things and they don't get better, it's a waste of time. People, they'll have a sales rep for 6 months. They're like, oh, he hasn't really gotten better. You should have fired him in the first 30 days. Like you want to find 7s and get them to 10s. A lot of people, they get 3s and then they have to work their ass off to get them to a 6. A 6 is still trash. It's not worth the time. And I used to have an issue with that because people will talk about it in leadership books. It's like, you got to pour into your team. You got to pour into your team. So I was like, oh, maybe I'm a bad leader. No, like you still need to find top talent. It's a total waste of time to try to take a low talent person and try to develop them because you're paying for experience. Now, maybe in the beginning of your business, when you don't have a lot of funds, yeah, you have to get low level talent. But at the highest levels, if I'm paying 20 grand or 15 grand or 30, like, why would I hire for potential? You should hire someone who's done exactly what you're trying to do and done it at a high level, and then they bring their ideas to the table. If you're giving them the ideas, why are you paying them so much money? And that just took me years of mistakes to understand. So now, if I bring someone in and they don't perform right away, they're gone. Because there's only one of two reasons that's happening. They're not good enough or you don't have good SOPs. At this point, we do have good SOPs, so I know they're just not cut out for it. Like they're not going to get better and it's not worth the time. It's just like hire slow, fire fast.
Yeah, I think Gary Vee says that, right?
Hire slow. Like you want to interview and interview and interview and wait as long as you can, because it like bringing someone in and then you try to ramp them up, you just waste more time and you lose more money doing that. So now if I don't find the right person, I'll wait. Like I'll just feel the pain, I'll take on clients or something if I have to. Like if I have to step in, I'll step in if I have to before I'll hire someone that I don't think's a fit.
Are there 3 primary main qualities that you look for when you're hiring someone to your team?
Yeah. First one is like, do they want to work hard? So I'll ask questions. I'll basically lay out the schedule. I'm like, so here's your schedule. We work really hard here. If you don't like working hard here, you're going to hate it. Like I'll just scare them off. That's number one, is just effort. Like some people, they just don't really want to work that hard, and that's fine. Like they just want to get a paycheck. Those people can't be on my team. Number 2 is experience. So I ask them, so here's what most people do in interviews, and it's super dumb. They go, so like, how well do you know Facebook ads? What do you think you're going to say? Well, I know them pretty well. I've done them a few times.
Yeah.
But if I say, hey, Jeremy, what was your last job? And then tell me what you did in a day. And you're like, oh, I was a coach and I did this, this, and this. And I notice you don't bring up sales or you don't bring up ads. I already know you don't know how to do it because you didn't do it before. That's like one of the best strategies I've had in interviews is I don't ask yes or no questions. I just say, what did you do in the past? Tell me about your day. And then I know right away if they're a fit for it. So 2 would be experience. And then 3, I think 3 is then just like, are they proactive? You know, some people, it blows my mind. I'm like, did you Google it? Oh, no, let me Google it.
Yeah.
Like, don't come ask me a question unless you've Googled it and tried to figure it out first. Like, that's just a massive waste of time when you have people on your team that are doers, they're not thinkers. And that some people will be doers because of what you're paying them. You can't get, a VA from the Philippines for $800 a month and then be like, she's not a thinker. She's not
right.
I mean, she's a VA from the Philippines. But if you're paying someone good money, they should be a thinker. Or at the very least, if they're not, you train them to. So if you came to me and said, Tanner, what do I do? I'd say, Jeremy, that's a great question. First, before I tell you, like, what do you think you should do? Like, what are maybe 3 possible solutions so that you learn how to think of stuff on your own? Because that's the whole point of a team. The whole point is in a perfect world, you hire someone and you never talk to them. Now, that doesn't always happen because you got to manage and stuff comes up. But the best players on my team, I talk to them the least. That's the whole fucking point. That's the whole point, is so I can get leverage. If I'm not getting leverage, then why are they here? I'll just do it myself. But I used to think, you know what? I'm a bad leader because I'm not trying to invest in this guy. It's just the wrong mindset. Like you invest in it's like an athlete, right? If you're a coach and you have the best player and the worst player, who's a better use of your time to invest in? The best player. Why? Because he's better. He has more upside. You wouldn't be like, oh, I'm going to spend all the time with Timmy. Timmy's on the bench.
Yeah.
You just, that's the same thing in business. But for whatever reason in my head, I thought I'm a piece of shit because I'm not trying to help Timmy. It's not a charity. It's a business.
Right.
And I think a lot of people lose sight of that, or they think they're a bad person. You're not. You just
was there ever a point where you were like, where you really struggled to surrender control in the business and like you were just like micromanaging everything?
100%. So, and it's normal though. So the reason is in the beginning, the business grows as much as you work. So the more I worked, the more I made. Once you get to around 100,000, it doesn't work because there's too much stuff going on, right? You got setters and you got calls, and so you can't be everywhere. So what happened, the way I learned how to lose control is one day I just got to a breaking point and I was so stressed. I was like, fuck this. And I just put my phone down for 3 days and I didn't answer anything. And my team didn't know where I went. And I came back after 3 days and like it didn't implode. And I was like, I was like, maybe I'm stressing out for no reason. Maybe I'm just, need to like relax. That was when I started to realize like, dude, you gotta like chill out. And it's a little scary because it's your livelihood, right? And you sacrifice blood, sweat, and tears to get it there. But if you don't learn how to let go, it just, again, it defeats the purpose. You don't have leverage. There's some guys in Miami who make a lot of money. Nothing against them. They're buddies of mine, but it's not a business. They are the business. They have there is no leverage. Meaning if they don't work, they won't scale. They won't grow. That's not a business. A business is it makes money and you don't have to do anything. So it creates leverage. If there's no leverage, it's not actually a business. It's a job. And that's fine. But you just got to call it what it is. Like if you're a one-person team, it's not really a business. It's a job, right?
How are your relationships in Miami? Do you feel like you have a lot of deep friendships here?
No, dude, it's interesting. People, I feel like Miami gets like a negative stigma or something. I don't get it personally, because maybe I just don't see it because I'm just too busy with my own shit. I don't have a lot of deep friendships, but to be frank with you, I don't have a lot of friendships in general. Part of it is because at least this is the story I tell myself, right? I'm really busy. And having deep connection takes time. And usually if I'm in a relationship, it's business, 14 hours a day, couple hours with the girlfriend, and then I'm tanked, bro. I don't have anything left. The other part of it is I just, like, I only want to, like, invest my time with the people that I feel can provide value. And, you know, I had this thought recently where I have some good friends. Like, I think they're good guys. But to be frank, we only hang out when we're partying. And I started, and it wasn't bad. Like, I never thought of it that way, but I started to realize as I was, you know, making some shifts in my life, that I said, you know, dude, we only really talk if it's about partying or girls. And I was like, I don't really care about either, to be frank. Like, I want to talk about high level shit. So those are, like, that's my answer to that. Like, I don't think it's something with Miami. I think I could be anywhere and it'd be the same thing. I don't think Miami is that big of an issue. People will say stuff like, "Oh, everyone in Miami is superficial." It's a big city. Every city has fucking superficial people.
It's so true too, because
it's just dumb to me. I'm like, or you're looking in the wrong places. Like,
exactly.
People will be like, "Oh, everyone does in Miami is party." It's like, I don't really party that much. Like, I'm in Miami. Like, I like the city for the vibe. I like the no state income tax. I like the weather. I like the restaurants. It's like you get what you look for.
You exactly what you said, and you attract what you are.
Yeah.
So in Miami, it's funny because that's like the most common narrative is people are just like, everyone is superficial. It's fake. And yes, there's a lot of that shit. But understand, you're going to attract what energy you bring. So if you're hanging out at the club, right? If what you care about is all the material shit, like, it's hilarious to me when dudes come to me and they're like, bro, like, all the women in Miami are just gold diggers. They're just so superficial. I'm like, bro, because the only thing that you're flexing, the only thing that you're showing is your fucking Lambo, your fucking Rolex.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, and there's nothing wrong with those things, by the way. But if you're attaching all of your self-worth and identity to all those material things, that's exactly what you're going to attract.
It goes back to the same thing. You create your reality. So everyone's blaming everyone else when it's like, you're the dumbass who's creating it. Like, you're making that happen.
Yeah.
Like, if a guy goes, all girls suck. Well, then when he goes in a room, he's going to think all girls suck. So what's he going to get? All the girls are going to suck.
Yeah.
If you go in a room and you're like, girls are amazing, I love girls, you're going to go in a room. Like, it's half the game is like how you want to perceive stuff, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't like how you think about stuff, the way you try to change it is start saying it morning and night until the unconscious becomes conscious. That's it.
Yeah.
And it's really not any more complex than that. But yeah, whenever people say shit about Miami, I'm like, bro, first off, like, because the thing is, if I felt that way about Miami, I wouldn't fucking be here.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. Like, why are you here if you don't want to be here then? Leave.
And Miami is a great place too, because you get to connect people with like you, like, all the time.
Yeah.
And if you really want to attract more high vibration relationships, then put yourself in situations and settings where you're likely to find those type of people. Like, go to a Pilates class, go to a yoga class, go to a health and wellness event, go to a networking event, like, go shopping at Whole Foods. You'll probably connect with some nice people there.
Or, like, the other thing too is for the guys, if you're a high level guy, it doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter that much if the girl lives in Miami or not, to be honest. It's like, if you make a lot of money and you work online and she lives in LA, it doesn't fucking matter.
It's true.
Like, it doesn't matter at all.
It's true. I've flown a couple to Miami.
It's
and
not
even from different.
Well, yeah, like, I mean, and my ex, like, she lived in Detroit, I lived in Houston. We started dating long distance, then we moved together. It's not a big deal. I don't know why people get so caught up in that. And the other thing with a lot of these guys though too is they treat girls different than their business. So, like, here's a crazy idea. Like, just hear me out. If you really want to meet a lot of girls, treat it like a business. So you need leads. How are you going to get leads? Well, most people do the dating app stuff, and that's fine. But, like, you could literally get a VA. You show them the type of girl you like. The VA reaches out to 100 girls. You're going to get 10 responses. You're going to get 3 numbers and take them on a fucking date. It's not that fucking hard. Like I don't understand. I just don't understand why guys would even say that. It's so easy.
Have you done that before?
Dude, of course.
Really?
Because I'm busy.
Yeah.
Think of it this way.
I've been losing out on a massive opportunity with my VA.
Like look, so think of it this way. Like I'm driven. I want to make money. I want to succeed. So the first thing is, first off, I don't personally think it's good for your brain to be looking at half naked girls all day.
No.
Right? I like more fitness looking girls. So like some of them are wearing those type of things. And I'm not saying it's bad, but like, do you think me sitting in a screen for 3 hours a day or swiping is like a high value skill, or it's going to be good for my brain? I don't think so. So you take that off the plate. You're like, you get a VA and you're like, hey, look, I'm busy working, building my businesses. Go find girls like this and send them a message. They send a message. If the girls respond, they get the number. Your VA sends you the number, and then you take it from there. FaceTime the girl. If she's normal, take her on a date. If she's not normal, move on. It's like so easy, honestly. I don't get it personally. And then you don't even have to go on dating apps. Just go on Instagram. And Instagram is a dating app.
Yeah, I think that's, wow. I feel like opened up this new portal.
You'll save 3 hours a day and you don't waste any time.
Thank God I don't spend a lot of time doing that shit. But I'm just thinking of it even as like being a guest on other podcasts. Mm-hmm. And I know there's a lot of people who do that. Like they have a booking agent. Like that is such an efficient way to navigate pretty much every area of life.
I just don't understand the point in doing it yourself if you're a high level guy who's making money. It's such a low level activity. Like, let me message 100, like, because most of the girls won't see it, or they have another 100 guys in their DM. So like, if you just, I just think it's super simple, and it's just a numbers game. And if you think about it, it's a very easy ask. When you're messaging someone to buy your shit, that's a way harder ask. But if you're like, hi, I think you're really beautiful. Could I go on a date? And then they're like, yeah. I'd love that. Obviously, what are they gonna say?
Do you do like A/B testing with different messages and be like, yo, this one resonates more?
No, I just got a stud PA, and she's killing it, bro. And she's
she has other roles.
Yeah, and like I don't look at it as a bad thing either, because the goal for me, like if you're actually out dating and you're trying to find a girl to date, the only way to do that is you date a lot of girls, you see which girls you like, and then you can make one of those girls your girlfriend. I don't want to waste my time trying to set that stuff up though.
It's crazy how much time.
And then it takes a very negative experience and it makes it a positive experience. Because me personally, I was like, man, like I don't want to get back in the dating world and like have to mess it, like, and then I just cut that out completely, and now I enjoy it because I just cut all the bullshit out. I get the numbers of the girls I like, and then I go from there. And if the VA gets a number you don't like, don't reach out to him.
Yeah.
That's it.
Bro, I gotta tell you, I'm really fucking inspired to just be a better leader after this conversation in all facets of life. Like genuinely, like I'm looking forward. I'm not looking forward to this podcast ending, but I'm looking forward to like getting after it this evening and tomorrow, and just applying some of the shit that we've talked about. And bro, I just want to acknowledge you because you know what you've built is fucking amazing. I know you're just getting started.
Thanks.
And it's just cool to vibe with you and see kind of the journey that you're on and the level of intention and thoughtfulness that you operate with. And I can see that you've done a lot of inner work. I'm
trying to be a good person. I just don't have all the answers. Yeah. And I'm also trying to be transparent where I struggle or where I'm undecisive without feeling bad about it, which is tough because, you know, when you're trying to put on a front with people that you're one thing and then they see that you have other issues or that you're not struggling or you're struggling with other things, it's, you know, I think it'd be a little like, it feels like a little embarrassing, or it can feel a little, you know, maybe I shouldn't share that much, but I'm at peace with it, I guess. You know, like I'm in a place where I just feel like I'm here and I'm going to do the best I can with it. And, you know, that's all life is. Just like do your best and be honest, be a good person. I think like things will fall where they're supposed to fall. Fuck yeah, bro. Yeah. Do you have any final words to share with the people watching? I think there's going to be like so much viral shit from this show, which I'm fucking juiced for. Saw the boys getting excited. I mean, I mean, it depends. I think it depends. But I think like the only piece of advice that I usually give over and over again, you know, people will say, what would you tell your younger self? I just wish I would have invested in myself sooner. Like, you know, and I don't say that because I'm in the coaching space or I consult. I just wish like I hadn't been a knucklehead And I had realized that not having the money to invest in myself was not an excuse, right? Like I wish I had been like, dude, you're a grown ass man. Go get the money and like invest in yourself to learn skills to be better. And the reason I say that with so much conviction is my first 2 years of business specifically, I made $2,000. And I didn't have the money. I was living at home. I almost quit 5 times. And then I finally invested in a course and I kept investing. And the next 6 years I did 100, we just crossed like 115 million or something, like something crazy. And so that mindset has been brought into every facet of my life where like I will just voraciously invest and pay and read and just do whatever I can to keep learning, because that's how you get to where you want to go. Mm-hmm. And I feel bad because I talk to a lot of people and they won't do it. And 2 years later, they're in the same spot. And 2 years later, they're in the same spot. And I'm like, dude, you're running out of time. Like, we only live till we're 75. Like, you're running out of time. Like, you got to fucking go. And it just makes me sad because in 6 years, my life is completely different, right? About 30% profit margin. So let's say we done 30, let's say I took home 30 million, 50% go to taxes, 15 million net liquid, right? And then you put that in investments, like you can do the math, right? And then other people in 6 years, they've done nothing and they haven't risked anything. They haven't tried anything. So my only advice is for any of the young guys listening to this, is just go for it all. Because the thing is, you won't, and I know you won't believe me. I get it, because I wouldn't believe me when I said this, but you're not going to have any regrets if you fail. You're only going to have regrets if you don't try. Like, I'm telling you, you don't get, regret does not stem from failure. It stems from lack of effort. That's it, right? Like, it 100% of the time, right? Like, you don't feel regret that the girl said no at the gym. You feel regret you're too big of a pussy to go up to her. That's it, right? So half the time, it's just, if you know, it's not changing your feeling, it's ignoring the feeling and doing it anyways. And that's like a cheat code to life. So
that was fire.
All right, man.
That was a fire way to end things. Tanner, you're a fucking G. Really grateful to keep just watching the journey, bro, and continue connecting. I know you don't have a lot of friends, but you know, maybe I can crack the code and we can kick it outside of the podcast studio.
Sure, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Fuck yeah. You did it. You made it to the end of the podcast. I am so proud of you for pursuing this path of becoming the best version of yourself. Now, if this episode provided you value, then all I ask is that you share it with a friend and check out some of our other episodes, because my mission is to really bring you the best people in the world so you can become the most elevated version of yourself. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I can't wait to see you next time.